Hey love, what's up? Welcome to Confidently Uncomfortable. I'm your host J.Go, health and lifestyle coach and not so regal confidence queen. Coming at you with the real, the raw, and of course, the uncomfortable. My mission is to show you that to be confident, it has absolutely nothing to do with being perfect or having it all together, and everything to do with you getting uncomfortable and pushing your limits. Thanks for joining me. Let's dive in. I have a confession. I used to feel so guilty whenever I would do something for myself, whenever I would choose self-care, um, to a fault where I would go get massages, and like during the massage I always felt guilty, like I couldn't enjoy it, so I wanted to make sure that the person massaging me, like I would talk to them, and it was like this weird mental block where I felt like I don't deserve to relax. I don't deserve to, take this time for me. So I shouldn't even enjoy it. And I think it's why so many women, especially, stay busy. They continuously do things and are moving and are checking off the list and are like doing all the things for everyone else, but not doing things for themselves. There's a lot of reasons why we do that. It can be this feeling of, feeling selfish, making us feel like we're not a good person if we're doing things for ourselves, solely for ourselves. Also, it can be, wrapped up in our self worth. A lot of times, we as women can wrap our worthiness in our productivity, in our what we're bringing to the table and what we're doing for other people. And the thing about unconditional love is the people in your life, even the things that people that you're doing things for, should love you and will love you unconditionally, regardless of whether you're doing all the things for them or on the days where, you need a little more me time and you need to kind of let some of the other things go. So I'm very excited about this episode, just because I hold it closely to my heart. Self-care is very much a buzzword now. People talk all about like, oh, self-care. I see, it's like gone like mainstream when you start to see advertising companies like talk all about it. Like, oh yeah, like hashtag self-care, hashtag treat yourself. Um, and self-care can easily be wrapped up in just more consumerism. And I want us to recognize that self-care looks different for everyone. It could be buying that thing on Amazon, but it also can have nothing to do with a financial investment in yourself. It could be a time investment in yourself. So I'm going to be breaking down all the different forms of self-care, and then we're going to break it down to what can self-care look like for you in a really busy season of life. This is really good for someone who struggles to get any self-care in, who struggles to do things for themselves, because asking you to carve out 2 hours in your morning to go through this really, luxurious routine, that's fine and great for you ladies that don't have kids, but it's not working for me as a mom. And we like tell ourselves the reason that we can't do that. And I'm telling you right now, no matter what phase of your life you're in, you can do something for yourself today that is a form of self-care that you honestly need. Your body has been craving. You personally, your soul needs this. You've been feeling burnt out and you want to do something for yourself, but you don't even know where to start because it feels overwhelming. It feels like I don't know where to start. Well, here's the deal. I'm going to help you. Okay? So, hang tight with me as we talk about serving slices of self-care, and how to create the perfect combination for you. So, let's kind of just break down the different forms of self-care. So you can Google this ish, but I'm going to break it down for you anyway. There are 7 types of self-care. So there's emotional, there's mental, physical, social, practical, personal or professional, and spiritual. All of these different types of self-care are very important. Okay? They're crucial to our self-development, to our, personal well-being, to our self like feeling good about ourselves. And sometimes we put too much focus on one form of self-care and not enough on the other. So it's really good to identify what do we need and when do we need it. If you haven't taken my "What is your love language" quiz yet, I'll put that in the show notes. It's definitely one worth taking, because once you learn your top love languages, it can be helpful to create a self-care plan that feels very authentic to you. But I also want to talk about these different forms of self-care, what they can look like, and maybe when you need more of some things and less of others. And that's okay, it's going to fluctuate. This fluctuation is not based on your personality, but more so just different seasons of our lives. So let's kind of go through this. So emotional self-care is the actions we take to connect with our emotions and process them in a healthy way. So a form of emotional self-care, can be taking time to journal. It can be reflecting on things. It can be stepping out of your current environment to really process. It can be going to therapy. There's a lot of ways to focus on our emotions and connect with them. Also, side note, there's a lot of crossover with these where you're hitting two buckets with possibly one self-care activity. That's totally fine. Mental self-care is anything you do specifically to stimulate your mind and cultivate a healthy psyche. So when it comes to our mental self-care, doing anything that's going to make your mind feel better. So thinking about the emotional and mental self-care, all focused on your mind, anything with stress management, personal development. So whether it's that listening to a personal development podcast, reading a book, showing yourself love and grace. This is a really big one that's good for your mental and emotional state, is letting go of that perfectionist mindset. I talked about that in the last episode. Again, this is a 3-part series about helping you feel intentional and grounded through the holiday season. This is part 3. So if you haven't listened to part 1 and 2, I definitely recommend you hit pause on this one and go listen to those first, and then come back here when you're ready to talk through the different aspects of self-care. But if you're here on part 3, thanks for hanging in. I'm definitely looking forward to this part. So the emotional and mental side of our self-care, showing yourself love and grace, like I said, positive self-talk. So, a lot of times, if you're like me and you struggled with your body image for a really long time or feeling like you're not enough, you were your biggest worst enemy. You were your inner mean girl, was constantly putting you down. You'd get dressed and look in the mirror and tear yourself apart. Maybe you're still in that space. Positive self-talk can be a really healing way to do this. And we'll come back to how to incorporate this in your life, but that can be really helpful. I think on episode 2 episodes ago, part 1 of this, I talked about, connecting with your body and feeling more connected to your body, and how if you do something like putting lotion on as a part of your morning routine, you're doing it naturally, you can add to this with some more self-care by some positive self-talk. So while you're massaging that lotion on your body, you're thanking your body for everything that it does for you. You're celebrating where it's at right now. If you have some stretch marks, you're recognizing like everything that your body's been through to continue to help support you. It's so easy that we shame those parts of ourselves or we hide from them, and I want you to learn to embrace them, okay? The next aspect of this can be gratitude, which the episode previous we talked about how to practice gratitude, some journal exercises you can do. Really establishing a routine can be helpful for this. And then, like I said in the 2 episodes ago, the different aspects of nurture, nature, and naked. So getting out in nature can be really good for our mental and emotional health. Also physical health, because moving is great. So let's tap into the next one. So our body, so our physical and practical aspects of self-care. So these are things that sometimes we personally don't even view as like self-care, because we're like, oh, well, I have to do those things. Like I have to do that. But the thing is, when we see it as something that we have to do or it's an obligation, we sometimes don't value it or we don't prioritize it. So for example, sleep is on here. So sleep is super practical. It's good for our physical bodies to heal. feel, it's good for our minds, it's just good all around, but we don't necessarily prioritize it the way that we need to be. Stretching is another one. Everyone's always saying, I need to stretch more. Yeah, you do it. Don't just say it. I'm saying to myself, like stretching right now while I'm recording this. Walking, so moving your body, actually physically moving it, exercise, eating whole foods, yoga, gym, sex. Yes, I said it. Definitely an amazing form of self-care. Resting and organizing your space. So cleaning, all of those things, you might think, oh, that's basically a chore list, or that's just, I feel like I have to do those things, or they're not a part of my self-care plan. And like I said, check yourself on these basic foundations first, and then see that as a form of self care. It's very practical, but it's important. And then the spiritual, social, and personal side of self care. Think about that like feeding your soul. So we talked about this in the last episode, but this is a big one. Boundaries are a huge part of that. Having a support system, creating boundaries with maybe social media, your screen time, possibly taking a little detox away from it. Especially if you're finding yourself getting caught in comparison around the holidays where you're just scrolling and you're like, oh, I can't believe so and so's on a vacation, or wow, their family like looks so cute, and like maybe they're not intentionally trying to make you feel like bleh, but it's just happening. And you know what? The more we're consuming, it's easy to get into that lower state. So to raise your vibration, I really recommend you put the screen down, get outside, move your body, do something that's going to make you feel better. Ask yourself, what does my highest self need right now? How can I show myself some unconditional love? And so that social media, taking a step away, can be huge. Real deep communication can be really good for the soul. We talk about social self care and communication, connecting with others this holiday season. So, last episode, I talked a lot about kind of some of the hard things about connecting with family and connecting with friends and getting together for the holidays, but there can be some really beautiful aspects of it too. And ideally, I want it to be a beautiful experience for you. But I want you to get clear on the intentions first and communicate with people and figure out, who do I really want to connect with during this time of year, and what kind of conversations do I want to have, and like think about having them ahead of time. And that's going to really set the tone for how you're going to go into this season of your life. Spending time with other people, having hobbies is really good. I think we were trained, I could do a whole episode on this, but we were trained like to specialize in everything, especially if you're a millennial like me. It was like you were taught uh, if you were good at something, you needed to go all in with it. Like, it wasn't like you could be a multi-sport athlete. It was like, if you're a swimmer year round. You're doing this year round. And it was really interesting how that shifted during my childhood and seeing that change. And I think it also shifted our minds to where hobbies weren't really a thing. Like, very much we grew up to where things started to become a side hustle, just because of the technology age that we grew in. It's like, oh, you're doing something, oh, it needs to be a side hustle, you need to make money doing it, there needs to be a purpose behind it. And sometimes self-care is about actually doing something, not just to check a box. It's doing something just to love yourself and be present and slow down and do that puzzle, or go roller skating outside, or whatever it is that's a hobby that you want to start doing that you're like, man, I used to do that as a kid. Go out and do it. That's a really, really good thing for your soul, for that inner child and healing. Go climb a tree. That's a fun one. People look at you very weird when you climb a tree, but my youngest brother is like a hippie and I love him so much. And he's like the coolest person. I'll have to bring him on the podcast one day, him and my older brother. But he will do things and just not care. Like, he'll walk around barefoot constantly. I do it, but not as much as him. And he'll climb a tree in the middle of around all these people and doesn't really care. And I love that because he's teaching that to his children, and it's something that I want to continue to teach others. And so just do things that make you feel good, and don't worry, oh my gosh, someone's going to look at me weird because I'm dancing right now. Go dance in the middle of the street. It's very refreshing to see people not hiding and constantly trying to come off a certain way. Just be yourself and really lean into that more and more. And that comes to my next point of knowing yourself and your identity. So, taking time to connect with yourself, feel grounded, identify what your values are and what things you want out of life, that can really be nourishing for your soul. It's a form of self care and spiritual growth, personal growth and development, as well as social growth. This helps you to honor your highest self and also get a clear vision on what it is you want in your life. I think so often we are trying to do things and check off boxes and have these goals, but it's really just things that have been kind of set out for us, like an expectation. This is what you do during the holidays. This is what you do when you're this age. This is what you do in this order. Like, you gotta, I talked about this already, so I won't get into too much, but if you're able to actually figure out your values, your identity, what's going to honor your highest self, it helps you get a really clear vision on what it is that you want for your life. And we'll talk more about visualization as we gear into the new year coming in. So definitely follow along the next few episodes through the end of December. But with that, knowing yourself so that when you're creating a vision, it feels very, very aligned. So, all of these different forms of self care, like I just said, emotional, mental, physical, social, practical, personal, and spiritual, they they're all very important, but sometimes you need more than others at different points in your life. So ask yourself, what kind of self-care do I need today? If you're coming off of this episode you're listening to after having been around a lot of family, having done a lot of things, social self-care might not need to be a big piece of what you're working on this week, right? It might mean that you need to actually get back into some emotional self-care, and maybe you need to, call that therapist and get an appointment figured out. Maybe you need to focus on moving your body a little bit more. Maybe you need to, just some practical things of starting to meal prep and do some of those things that you had felt really off with your routine because you were traveling. And so asking yourself what it is that you need is going to be really helpful. Like I said with affirmations in the last episode, if you're just trying to follow along with what other people are doing, it's not going to help you. It's not going to feel aligned. Self-care looks different for everyone. Something that works for me might not work for you. Something that worked for you last month might not be what you need this month. And so be open to the ebbs and flows of who you are as an individual, and that you're going to need different things at different time. The more grounded you are and connected you are with yourself, the easier it's going to be to tap into what it is that you need and how you can fill that part of yourself up throughout your entire lifetime. So, let's figure that out. If you want to do these things and you're like, okay, I really want to start taking care of myself, and I'm excited about this idea of self-care, and I don't really know what it is. I've tried it before, but I feel like it doesn't feel like it's a routine for me. I feel like I always get overwhelmed because I want to do everything. I want to have this elaborate routine, but then life happens. I hear this term a lot. Well, life happens, and this came up and I got really off my routine and I quote unquote fell off track. And it's funny, I think God laughs at us when when we come up with this plan. I don't know if this used to be you, but before I broke up with the idea of perfectionism, I would always research everything, and I would like spend all this time creating this perfect workout plan or this perfect meal plan, and I would write everything out and I would create all these rules. Yes, rules, which this is terrible. Where it was like, you can't do this, you can't eat this, you got to do this, and I spent all this time and energy trying to create this plan for the future that I was really not present in my body, and I wasn't recognizing that, hey, that kind of restriction is not going to help you here. And if I had just let go of that idea of what it could look like perfectly and just start doing small things, they're going to help me. That would have helped me go a lot longer. It would have helped me continue and be more consistent. And that goes with your nutrition, your fitness goals, as well as just your self care day to day goals, where you want to be in life. So I don't want you to think that you have to wait until after the holidays, until next year, until things slow down, and then you'll prioritize your needs, and then you'll start taking care of yourself and your health. Life's too short. Life is too damn short to wait to take care of you. okay? Even if you're taking care of other people, it is so crucial that you are the example and letting them see that adults take care of themselves and that that's a priority. Them seeing you set the example is going to help them do the same in their own lives. So if you struggle with doing things for yourself because you feel like it's selfish, remind yourself it doesn't end with you. You're making an impact on those around you, okay? So, how can you fit self care into your current life? If you are in a busy season, if you're traveling a lot, if you feel like you don't have a lot of time, if you're a new mom, if you're, just feeling like it's a busy season at work or whatever it is for you, I want you to be able to find small slices of self care throughout your day. I want you to be able to carve that little bit of self care out, whether it's literally 2 to 3 minutes in the morning and 2 to 3 minutes at night, like finding that time. So, it's a lot easier to create some sort of self care plan in the morning than it is typically in the evening, just because you have more control of your schedule in the morning than later on in the day. A lot of time things come up, the unexpected happens. So if you are trying to have a little bit more expanded of a self-care routine, start in the morning and then kind of go from there. Also recognize, remember we talked about the practical self-care of sleep, of eating foods that make you feel good, of moving your body and going on walks. Those things are very important to start with. So are you drinking enough water? Are you sleeping a good amount? Are you all of these different things? And I also know everyone's in a different season of their life. So even if you're like, hey, I have a newborn, so yeah, I'm not sleeping, or I'm really struggling to get my water in, or whatever it is, I don't want you to judge yourself or compare your self care practices to someone else's and think, oh, mine's not good enough. No, right now, it's enough, and you can go from there. So let's take what you're already doing and continue to add on to it. I don't want this to be overwhelming. I just want it to feel like it flows with what you're currently doing. So I don't know if you've ever worked with me before. If you're listening, then some of this will be like a nice little refresher. But I do these things called nutrition and lifestyle audits with my clients. I do them within Body Confident Blueprint, the program that I do. Slight plug again. But I also have been setting up just some one off audits for people who just want a little bit of jumpstart and guidance going into the new year. We literally audit your entire day. We audit your nutrition, and then we identify what obstacles are coming up. How can we shift things and make it work towards you? Because it's really easy to see what someone else is doing and try and fit yourself into that box. And the thing is that is not going to be sustainable. Maybe you can shift and like do this really strict 30-day challenge for 30 days, but after that you recognize, hey, this is not feasible for my life because I have to do X, Y, and Z. So I really take an approach that's more individual, where we figure out what are your values, what does your lifestyle look like, and what do we want to accomplish? And then we create something that feels very, very aligned with who you are and what you want to achieve. So, how can you do that for yourself? Audit your day, figure out what things you're doing now. A lot of times we don't realize that we are getting so caught up in, social media and scrolling, and there's a lot of time that we're not spending on ourselves in the best way. It's really draining us, and we could start shifting towards things that really lift us up. That goes back to last episode. I talked about saying no to things. So it could mean saying no to something on the weekend that someone asked of you so that you can take a little bit more for yourself. It could be communicating your needs to your partner, to your roommate, to whoever, and letting them know, hey, this is where I'm at right now. I'm going to need a little more support here. And so by stating that, that's a form of self-care through communicating what it is that you need. So let's take some very simple things that maybe you're already doing and see how we can tack on a little slice of self-care with that. So I shower. I hope you do too. It's okay if you don't, but showering is something that maybe you do and you don't really think too much about it, right? You're not like, oh my gosh, I have to shower today. Maybe you are some days. I know I have days where that happens. But if you're already going into the shower, how can we make the most out of that? One of my clients does this like religiously. She does it very, like, I love that she does it as often as me. Yeah, I'll shout her out later. I'll ask her permission before I shout it out now. But we talked about the visualization of your highest self. And so, what she does while she's in the shower is she thinks about that vision of how she wants to show up as her highest self, what that looks like for her, things that she's doing, things that she's accomplishing, how she's acting, what she's wearing, all this in her mind. She's thinking through that. And then once she is done showering, she turns off the water, and as she steps out, she's stepping into her highest self. We literally have a mantra that goes along with it, and it's her mantra, so I'm not going to say it, but she steps out into that and she's stepping into her highest self for the day. It sounds really, like, oh, well, she's just showering. No, but she's intentionally being present in that moment. I talked about the importance of being present 2 episodes ago. This is where you can really start to use that in order to step into your highest self. If you do something like putting on lotion, I talked about this 2 episodes ago. Putting on lotion, we do it and we're like so rushed all the time that you're just trying to get it done and you're not really thinking about it. It's like, let's take maybe 1 to 2 more minutes longer and really start to, as you're putting that lotion on, you're celebrating your body, you're thanking your body for everything that it's done. All of those things, like, it doesn't take much more time, but it makes a huge difference and it makes a larger impact down the road. Maybe you're someone who drinks coffee. I literally have coffee with me right now drinking this. If you drink coffee, then you can attach that habit that you're currently doing to something else that you want to do that's a form of self-care. A lot of my clients will do coffee and journal. So while they're having their coffee, instead of scrolling on social media in the morning, they keep their phone plugged away and they're writing their gratitude journal in the morning. They're writing their journal, they're writing their intentions for the day while they're enjoying their coffee. That present moment is going to make a larger impact in your day than you sitting with your coffee and scrolling, right? Maybe you walk your dog, maybe you walk yourself in the morning. Going on a walk, you can do that and be on your phone, right? It's really easy to just want to scroll on your phone. Those things are so addictive. Instead of being on your phone, you can just focus on the things around you. You can focus on your breath. You can focus on gratitude. You can focus on, you know, you know, anything that you can tie in with that walk that's going to make you feel better. Even if it's just walking and being present in that moment, you're going to get a whole lot more out of that walk than if you just kind of rushed through it. If you have a commute to work, some of y'all are working from home, still highly recommend you create some form of a routine for that. Even if you don't have to commute, I don't want you rolling out of bed, just pulling up your laptop and showing up. I know the desire to do that is easy, but a lot of times we're doing that because we're struggling in other areas. We're feeling very tired and sluggish, maybe dealing with some depression and anxiety, and we just don't really want to show up right now. And I want to tell you that you deserve to show up for yourself, okay? Now, with your commute, maybe you're driving. If you're driving, could you listen to a podcast? Social self-care could be that you call up a friend. Every time I drive, I call my mom. I call my mom so much while I drive that when I call her, she says, "Where are you driving?" Just immediately knows. And I will do that every single day because she's like one of my best friends. So do something like that for yourself. It could be listening to classical music. I mean, whatever it is that you feel like is going to feed your soul and make you feel really good, incorporate that with your commute time, because it's really easy for us to focus on our anxiety about the future of what you have to do at work, or stress about like traffic, or maybe you're, just feeling really rushed. If you can take time to just get something out of that commute time, it can feel really good, okay? Your lunch break. Whew, I talk to so many people who do not take a lunch break. They don't take a lunch break. I I struggle with this because I know that I'm not, I have my own business. I work from home, but I think there's this pressure, this peer pressure, maybe even, or pressure from our superiors at work that you are expected to work through lunch. If you took an hour-long lunch, you are being lazy. That is not true. People who smoke take 15-minute smoke breaks every hour. You can take a longer lunch, okay? Unless you're actually actively clocking out for that. If that's the case, you can take a shorter lunch, you can find a way around it, make the most out of the lunchtime that you have if you only have half an hour. Don't spend it on social media. I listen, and I'm saying that as someone who literally lives on social media. I eat on, I do everything on social media. That's where all my income comes from, but I don't want you on there as much as you are, okay? do something else that's going to make you feel really good. Now, if you want to be on social media, it's great, but I just think when it becomes mindless scrolling and not just an intention of like, I'm going to take 15 minutes and check in with a friend, that's when it becomes an issue. Could you take that 15 minutes of scrolling and go for a walk or just go outside and feel the sun instead of the fluorescent office lights on your face? Um, Trying to find something like that can be really good. Cooking and cleaning. So these are chores. These are things that we feel like we have to do, right? And sometimes when we're in that mindset of thinking I have to do something, it makes us go into it with a with a negative mindset and putting ourselves down and just feeling like, ugh, I have to do this. I'm so frustrated. And y'all, I do not like cleaning. I don't like it at all. I feel like I'm broken as a woman because I don't like to clean, but listen, everyone's different and it's okay. I am not the clean one in the relationship. Tom is way cleaner than me. I love him. He's amazing, but he also has like OCD like tendencies. Nothing wrong with that. I have the opposite of that. So, what do I do in order to still continue to take care of myself and do those things that are a form of self care? Cooking is a form of self care, cleaning is a form of self care. Well, I pair them with things that I actually enjoy doing. So, when it comes to cooking, I do like cooking, but it makes it fun for me when I, try out a new recipe or I, put on my favorite movie or Gilmore Girls or whatever, have it on while I'm doing that and remind myself the intention behind meal prepping and cooking is an act of service towards your future self. Like I said, if you haven't taken the self-love quiz, definitely take it because if your form of self-love of love, your love language, the highest one is act of service, then doing this is really important. And a lot of times, I could do a whole episode on this, but a lot of times the form of self-love that we crave, the form of the love language that we crave, that we desire, that's our top one, we typically do the opposite almost to punish ourselves. So if acts of service is your love language, a lot of times we will rebel against that. We will punish ourselves by not doing anything for ourselves, by not taking care of ourselves, by not cleaning. It's because, we're putting ourselves down. And it happens when you're in a lower state, when you're dealing with, if you are dealing with any kind of, emotional, mental, physical, like struggle right now, it can lead to us, putting ourselves down in the opposite way of what we actually need. So I'll do a separate episode on that just because I feel very strongly about that factor. So make sure you listen to the self love language quiz or take the self love language quiz before I get that episode out. Um, when it comes to cleaning, again, I don't love cleaning. What's something that I already do? Well, I brush my teeth every night. So every single night while I'm brushing my teeth, I pick up any of the clothes that are on the floor, putting the couch back together, turning off lights, putting things together, making sure the dishes are put away, all while I'm brushing my teeth. I know it sounds crazy, but it works for me because it doesn't feel like I'm like quote unquote wasting time. You're not wasting time, but it just helps me to habit stack like that, to take something that I already naturally do and tie it to something that I don't love doing all the time. Definitely recommend doing that. Okay, the other thing I want to remind you is this. I'm going to end with this because I think it's a very important reminder because a lot of times we get tied in with self-care, we compare ourselves, we feel really bad, and again, that comes back to that busy nature. We're trying to do all the things, we're staying busy, and we have this giant to-do list, right? You have this giant to-do list, and a lot of times, because you have things on your to-do list constantly, you think you don't deserve to take a break. You don't deserve to do something for yourself. I have a lot of mom clients who they have so many other things that they need to do for their kids that they feel guilty doing something for themselves, or they're full-time working, they're at home and they feel almost guilty taking a break, like, oh, I have to prove myself because I'm a mom that works at home full-time and full-time mom at home. Because you're a full-time mom either way, by the way, but a full-time mom at home, you think, oh, I have to like earn this ability to do this and I constantly have to be doing things and you just don't slow down. And you do not have to do that, okay? Give yourself permission to slow down. Give yourself permission to not do all the things all the time. You are allowed to slow down. You don't have to earn rest. Rest is a priority. It is something that you need. physically, mentally, and emotionally, you need to take rest time and time again, or you will burn out. I know that from experience. So instead of getting caught up in the thought of, I'll slow down when I finish my to-do list, or I'll, do this thing for myself when I do every single thing that I need to do today. Start with just prioritizing and say, what does my highest self need today? Figure that out first, and then figure out on your to-do list what really needs to get done today. So I can't do everything today. If I were to pick 2 things, start with 2 things. Let's start there. And then once I've done those 2 things, I'm going to do something for myself. I literally, y'all, I do not care if it just means you do those 2 things for work and then you close your laptop. If you're not allowed to close it, don't, I guess, but look away from your screens and just set a timer for like 1 minute or 3 minutes and just breathe. This is why I love my trampoline now, because like this is what I do in between different tasks is I'll shut it down, turn off my screen, and then I'll like jump, or I'll go sit on my balcony, or I'll, read, and I keep a book next to my desk so that I can do something that's not on a screen to break up the feeling of having to be on the screen and break up the feeling that I have to go, go, go all the time. You do not. You can get the work done that you need to get done in whatever time you allow for it. So if you allow for these work tasks to take 10 hours because you're doing these 10-hour shifts, that's how long it's going to take. But if you tell yourself, you know what, I'm going to be able to allow myself to get it done before 5 p.m. or before 3 p.m. And then I'm going to allow some time for myself, or give yourself time in the morning. So don't let other people try and convince you that it's not possible to prioritize your self-care and your needs. And not only is it possible, it is absolutely crucial that you do. Okay. I see so many people that are quitting their jobs right now. It's called like the great resignation is what I'm hearing people say. And it's because they're realizing that most companies don't care about you. They'll replace you when you're gone, and they act like you're a family, but in the reality of things, they're not prioritizing your mental health. And family, real family, takes your mental health seriously. Okay? So I think you should take it just as seriously and set those boundaries. Prioritize the self-care. If you got to start small with just little bits and chunks, you can. If you got to start with just 3 minutes in the morning of washing your face or splashing water on your face or stretching, something before you go into the rest of your tasks for the day, that's a win. Okay, start there and grow. But I want you to remind yourself that you deserve self-care now. You don't have to earn it. You deserve it now. Okay. Every day is going to look different, and that's okay. I'm here to remind you that you deserve unconditional self-love. I love you. I want you to continue to love you. And that love does not waver depending on what you do or don't do today. All right. I hope this was helpful. If you found any kind of big takeaways, definitely share with me what they were. Share this with a friend today. Be sure to tag me, subscribe, and I will see you next time. Thanks again for listening to Confidently Uncomfortable. I love being able to connect with you here, and honestly, don't want it to end. So head over to my Facebook group, Body Confident Blueprint, and be sure to follow me on Insta at J.Go Fit Life. Also, if you're ready to get real confidently uncomfortable, go leave this podcast a 5-star review and email me the review screenshot, support@jgofit360.com, for a chance to win a free 30-minute fitness audit and goal setting session. I appreciate your support. See you next time.